Thank you, Jeff Rintz. Thank you, Brett Waite. Thank you, Todd Waite. Thank you, Karen Quintostado, Eric Lovely, Gary Hindershaw, Bonnie Bowman. I want to thank everybody who's involved with Wide Awake News Radio. And a reminder, I know you guys are sick of hearing it, who are listening every night and hearing it multiple times a night. Next Monday starts our new scheduling. New hosts Monday through Friday in that hour spot. Gary Hindershaw on Monday is scheduled, and he will be starting in July. Myself Tuesday, Woody O'Brien Wednesday, Eric Lovely Thursday, and Karen Quintostado. Now, for Monday's program for the month of June, I've touched base with Kirsten Megan, activist Kirsten Megan, and she is on a very short list of guest hosts who will be filling in when people can't make it or when there's a scheduling conflict of some sort. She'll also be a regular guest on our programs. But she is already, right out of the chute, going to be hosting the Monday night slot for the month of June. Eric had a great idea off air, and I'm going to talk to Kirsten about it, to do a somewhat of a roundtable for part of Monday's program, where we have all the hosts on, including Kirsten, who's going to be a full-time or a preferred guest host. And just reintroduce everybody, take maybe the first two segments, reintroduce everybody to who we are, what we're doing, and kick off the program. That was a great idea, Eric. And I'll talk to Kirsten about it and see if she doesn't mind facilitating that in that hour. All right, now bringing on, again, Karen has done a bang-up job this week of getting the folks who I've always really enjoyed interviewing. We've had that all week long, and I continue it with the last hour of the last program I'm going to be hosting in the 2-hour spot, which is Greg Manarino. Greg, welcome back to the Wide Awake News Radio. Great to have you on. I've talked to you a little bit about the changing lineup. You and I will still be working together, just in sometimes in a little different format. Great to have you on. Give us your websites real quick and tell us what's new with you.
Okay. First of all, thanks for having me on here, Charlie. I really appreciate it, as always. I think you're great. Well, it's easy to find me here. The easiest place, I guess, would be YouTube. I do a business day market report Monday through Friday, or my website, traderschoice.net, or friend me on Facebook. I always like having more friends.
Ah, don't we all?
Yeah.
Greg Manarino is a very much a Renaissance man. That's what I call him anyway. Because he makes his living trading, and he's involved in the world of finance and trading. But he's also a practitioner. He's a medical practitioner, nurse practitioner, which is a big deal. I mean, that's a lot of education. And Greg, I've always said that, when we've talked off air, you're really in a good position for a changing world, because the markets all come crashing down tomorrow. Guess what? You have a very, very valuable skill, especially now. My girlfriend, and I told you this, is studying to do just that, and I mean, there's a huge demand for them. And frankly, as you well know, with my medical issues that I've had over the last year, 2 years, I prefer. I hope my doctor's not listening. I prefer seeing the practitioner or the what's the other one? Nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. Because it seems that they're more in tune with regular people. Doctors are rushing in, they're rushing out, they're here maybe not. But the practitioners, I've always had better luck in trying to sit there and go through potential treatment regimens or maybe talk about symptoms. They seem just to be more in tune with the average person, you know what I mean?
I've heard that a lot. Now, I'm actually a PA, but you're right. I hear that from a lot of people. They say the same thing. Well, I'd rather see a PA over a doctor. I don't really know why, but I think it maybe comes down to the way that we're trained. I suppose I would like to think that people that get involved in healthcare are more, people oriented. They we don't do this job to, solely to make money, although, they pay well, but it's about interacting with people and trying to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I've known a lot of doctors and in the building industry, right? Because they build a lot of houses. And I don't know, I want to say it's a different breed, but sometimes you get this whole super intelligent. I've known some really world class surgeons that are just so intelligent, and the thought process is almost divorced from what we consider to be normal. I mean, seriously, I don't know if you can testify to that, but I've spent hours and hours trying to explain the simplest concepts of construction, or maybe their 15,000 square foot house, and we're looking at material going into it, and trying to explain this simple stuff that everybody gets if you give them 5 minutes, yet they don't. But man, oh man, are they they're genius level when it comes to science, or when it comes to their field, but almost savant like. And now I'm gonna tick off a bunch of doctors, but that's been my experience, and what can I say? I base my life on the experiences that I have had. Anyway, and I didn't mean to call you an RN or a nurse practitioner.
No, that's fine. I mean,
I don't even know the difference. I know go ahead.
Pretty much do the same job. I mean, I work with nurse practitioners as well, and I have a hard time gauging the difference in practice. I mean, in practice, the physician assistant, the nurse practitioner, or even the DO or the MD in the clinical setting, we all do the same job.
Yeah.
That's really the truth.
Have you ever been to an urgent care or some kind of express care, which a lot of people use because it's so dang expensive? I mean, first of all, here's an example. Greg, I know we're off topic, but that's what we do, so that's cool.
That's fine.
I re-roofed my house a few years back. In fact, I'm trying to think of what year it was. I think it was 2008. And I shot a roofing nail, an 1 3/4 roofing nail, and don't, it was an accident that was unavoidable. It could have happened to anybody. Come on. And I shot this 1 1/2 roofing nail directly through my thumb. And when I say through, I mean through and through the meat of the backside.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and then it protruded, fortunately, slightly below the nail bed on my thumb. And, I'm sitting there with a glove that is now nailed with an electro-dipped galvanized nail that's collated with copper wire.
I don't mean to laugh, but
no, and here's the thing, I didn't even feel it. It happens instantaneously, and you don't feel it.
If you look at it, you're like...
But then I looked at it and said, okay, don't freak out and fall off the roof, because that would be insult to injury, or injury to injury. But, so I cut the glove off, because I wanted to see, and I did, and I could have went to the emergency room, or I could have went to urgent care, and I called urgent care, and I said, hey, I just shot a nail through my hand. Do you have a practitioner or something that can take this thing out? And, oh, yeah, we can do that. And, instead of it being, seriously, if this would have happened and you take this accident and you go to the emergency room, Greg, you're $1,000. You're $1,000 into getting that nail removed. And I don't think I'm exaggerating at all. I might be underestimating. But I went to a practice. What's that?
At least that, probably. Yeah. And then the waiting time would probably be incredible.
Absolutely. Practitioner, I was in and out of there in 45 minutes, cost me $150. I felt stupid.
Wow, that's a good deal, brother.
It was $150 because they were one X-ray, make sure it didn't split the bone. They shot it up with lidocaine or some such anesthetic, and bam, pulled it out. It was gruesome to watch, but it was over and done with. $150. I was on the way. So yeah, I'm a giant proponent.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it was great. It was great, all right. It was not the first pneumatic incident I've ever had in my life, but certainly.
Well, hopefully the last, maybe.
Hopefully the last, and hopefully the most severe. It was the first through and through that I can recall. So,
I've seen some pretty horrendous injuries.
I bet you have.
To construction,
yeah. All right. Well, I want to get into that. I want to get into the police. And a little bit, and I'll draw the nexus there, construction versus police, when we get back with Greg Manarino and more Wide Awake News Radio. Things you've seen in construction as far as injuries and whatnot go, and it made me think of a commentary video I put out last night, which had to do with, I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not, but I took a drive. I had to take a drive to attend a funeral actually, and as I was driving for a couple hours, I had a camera mounted in my car. I always do, and I was videoing the enormous, overwhelming number of highway patrol that were pulling people over. It's not lost on me that it was the 28th of the month or the 29th of the month, and always it seems when you get towards the end of the month, quota's got to be met. You start seeing more and more traffic violations or citations being issued, and I must have seen. I know I recorded 5 or 6, but I must have seen twice that in reality, and then 5 times that as far as these guys laying in wait, looking for an opportunity to use you or anybody else as a rolling ATM machine, so they can collect the revenue. They can be the revenue collection agents. But when I did this video, I started looking at some statistics, because we all know the propaganda of these are our heroes, right? These are the we got to worship the ground they walk on and never question their authority. Well, it's interesting when you look up some of the death by occupations across this country. Well, guess what? Law enforcement's not even in it. They're not even in the ranking. These are our heroes, they call them. But in reality, our heroes are the practitioners, right? Like yourself, that are helping people, that are truly generating something of value. You're not fleecing people. You're trying to make people healthier. As your advice to me has always been off air. As a practitioner, you've helped me with certain issues that I've been having. You have farmers who put food on your table. These are the heroes. These are the people we should be celebrating, not revenue collection agents. And in reality, you look at construction and you look at agriculture, and their death per 100,000 is unbelievably high compared to any other industry, including enforcement. There's hundreds and hundreds of people who die in these fields every year across this country in agriculture or in construction, and compare that to law enforcement that we're supposed to bow down and worship. It's relatively non-existent. So I found that statistic and that fact to be very interesting, that we don't celebrate the right things in this country. We celebrate the wrong things. We're celebrating extortion. Greg, I know that's not in your field of endeavor, but I'm sure you have an opinion.
I agree with you. I think a lot of things are, well, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say the word, but ass backwards
you can say
in this country. Everywhere, without a doubt. I'm not saying that these types of people don't deserve some type of recognition. They do put themselves in harm's way from time to time, but yeah. I do think there's issues. I mean, I'll just tell you what happened to me last year. I remember where I was going. I'm driving, and it was just a police officer, and he's pointing at cars and making us all pull over. So
like
he points at me and makes me pull over to the side. There's a whole bunch of cars. I'm like 8. I'm like 6 out of 8, and I'm sitting there, and he's sitting there talking to some other police officers, and then no one's even coming over to the car. And I'm starting to get aggravated. Like 10 minutes are going by, 15 minutes are going by. So finally, I decide I'm getting out of the car. I want to see what's going on. So I open the door, I get out. This guy comes screaming at me to get back into the car. Well, I said, I'm sitting here 15 minutes, and then he started yelling at me like I was,
a child.
Something. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I said, hold on a second. I said, what's the problem here? I'm sitting here for 15 minutes, blah, blah. Then he's like, well, all he was fixated on was that the fact that he told me to get back in the car and I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And he was going on and yelling and yelling. Finally, I said, fine, I'm going to get back in the car. So I sit back in the car. I said, now I'm back in the car. I said, so now what? So I said, I have to go someplace. I'm sitting here for 15 minutes. I said, I'm not looking to cause a problem here. I just want to get about my business. I said, what do you want from me? And let's just get moving. So then he backs away from my car and he goes, just get out of here. And then I left.
What was it? A checkpoint? What was it?
It was some kind of nonsense checkpoint. I mean, literally, I sat there in my car for at least 15 minutes. I'm not kidding you. Along with all these other people, no one came over to us. No one was asking us a question. We were just sitting there, wasting time.
Yeah.
And then, God forbid, I get out of my car to try to say, what's going on here? Can, just someone tell me so I can just go about my business? No one did that. And then I get out of the car, and I was literally verbally attacked by this individual.
I wish you had a camera with you, buddy.
I wish I did too.
I'm serious. I have one mounted on my visor. that.
I was very unhappy. It kind of ruined my entire day.
Well, you're in Arizona, right, or Vegas? Which one is it?
No, Las Vegas.
Yeah. And we've had reports before. That 400-mile border zone where the Constitution doesn't exist. But that isn't why you have checkpoints. Because they're everywhere. Except Montana, we don't have them here.
I understand that the police out here have a hard job. It's a party town, but still, they should treat people like people.
I don't even give that. 99.9% of the people that come to Las Vegas mind their P's and Q's. There's enough security, private security, in these, and better security in these on the strip, in these casinos, that they handle it. The police come and issue fines. The police come and haul people to a corporate prison system. That's what they do. They issue fines, they collect money, and if you want real protection and real security, and you don't want to be ripped off in a casino, you better have some good, your own good security on staff. That's how they prevent these massive losses in revenue in their gambling establishments. It isn't the police. Yeah, I get it. There's dangers in every job, right? But when you look at reality, it's more dangerous to be a farmer growing something substantial and creating something positive for the economy than it is to be a revenue enforcement agent. We're going to be back with Greg Manarino and more Wide Awake News Radio. Hang tight. We were speaking about where Greg had been pulled over and sat there like so much cattle, ignored completely, because what, Greg, you're just a physician's assistant and a broker, and you know what, you're meaningless. You're not a cop, so you can sit there and shut up and be left idle until you do something so sinister as open your car door. And then we were talking about how you're lucky to be not tased, for daring to ask what the hell's going on,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how I felt, honestly, and that's why I got out of the car. I'm like, okay, fine. You have a checkpoint. You want to look for something. That's fine. Whatever. Just let me go about my business. And I'm sitting there, and we're all sitting there. All of us. It wasn't just me. All these people, like 8 cars in a row. And then, like you said, finally, I said, hey, you know what? I want to find out what's going on. I opened my car door, and then I was almost attacked, like a pit bull.
Yeah.
Like I just,
are you challenging my authority? Never.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous.
How can you not be? People that say they're not when they're confronted with that tactic. Come on. I don't care who you are. Like you described, right? And you're a PA. You can probably explain the metaphysical reasons for it. But when someone's in your face, your heart rate's elevated, your endorphins are kicking in, your adrenaline is kicking in. That's when dangerous crap happens.
Exactly. And the truth of the matter is that if I was of frail health or something and someone came yelling at me like that, there may have actually been a problem. I wish I would have gotten this guy's name. He was a younger person who really thought who he was, and all he cared about was I wasn't listening to him when he immediately told me to get back in my car. I don't know.
Well, I was telling you that I had a story, and I'm not shared it on the program or in video or anything like that. But it was just a few weeks ago where I was driving locally, and I was driving on the highway, and it was full traffic. It was 3 lanes of traffic, one and a fourth merging lane, and it was at the time of night where it was packed with people heading home from work, 6 o'clock at night, I think, or between 5 and 6. And I'm driving in the full passing lane going 75 miles an hour, our speed limit, or roughly that. And all of a sudden, there's a job trailer in front of me, a construction job trailer, being pulled by a 3/4 ton pickup. And all of a sudden, his brake lights come on, and he starts, the trailer starts whipping side to side, and it came close. And my hat's off to this driver. He did a masterful job of controlling this thing. Because I would have lost it. And long story short, both of the left side of his, in the passing lane, there was nowhere to go back into the driving lane or into the third lane or the merge lane. It was all full. And so he had nowhere to go except grab the dirt in the median. And his whole left side of the trailer and his truck went in the dirt, big cloud of smoke. I ended up having to decelerate from 75 to about 25 miles an hour in about 10 seconds, or less. And in order to avoid slamming into the back into him, and so forth and so on, all this traffic behind me. Fortunately, they were alert, and no accident came of it. But the cause of it, it sent me into a tirade. It was a highway patrolman who decided that the most choice location, this is my opinion anyway, I guess I can't prove it because I never got to talk to him, but no emergency lights came on, no sirens came on, and as far as I know, I can't be sure on this, I didn't know if a blinker was used, but he decided he was going to exit the highway on the left-hand side to take advantage of the position in the median, so he could sit there and turn on his radar and try to grab somebody. After all, right, it's prime time, it's people commute time, and you can issue a lot of citations during that 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock time frame. And so he's deciding that right there is where he wants to pull off, grabs his brakes, starts to pull off. And like I said, no warning lights, no flashing, no nothing. And he's very lucky that there wasn't a wreck and fatalities out of this. And I was so ticked. I called. I was an emergency. I called the emergency line and reported the whole incident, and was going to come home and was kicking myself that the camera wasn't on, because without the photographic or video evidence, it didn't happen. Period. You're not going to convince anybody. So, but I left a message, and I did have somebody from the Highway Patrol contact me back, and then followed through on it with taking my report and then followed up after the fact. I was actually extremely frustrated with Montana Highway Patrol, but this sergeant that I ended up talking to, I don't know if any action came of it. I'm supposed to be informed when it does, but the long story short is, here you have people, productive people. Let me underscore this: productive. They're producing in our economy. They're producing in our society, being fleeced, or at least this individual, this mistaken trooper, deciding that the prime opportunity to fleece these people to generate the $6 million a year that they write in citations, to facilitate his writing these tickets and looking good, I'm assuming, in front of his peers, is to pull this dangerous maneuver in the middle of rush hour traffic. So the very people that they're trying to generate income off of, generate revenue off of, they're being put in harm's way. And it's infuriating. When I hear stories like yours, it's infuriating. And in this commentary I did last night, I said to people, Greg, tyranny isn't just about drones flying over it or cops knocking on your door to try to alleviate you of your Second Amendment rights. Tyranny is everywhere. Tyranny starts locally. And what happened to you is tyrannical. You can't be described any other way. You can't get out of your own car. I mean, give me a break.
That's true. It was very frightening. I did feel like I was, I don't know, I didn't do anything wrong. I felt like a criminal. Right off the bat, he treated me like I was a criminal or worse. And, it comes down to maybe respect. I think, the society today is in a constant state of decay. And it's not getting better. It's getting worse. It's going to get much, much worse because of all the issues going on from an economic standpoint. And
let's get into that. I mean, we're 40 minutes into it, and we've talked about everything but what we usually talk about. So, economics. Go ahead and give us an update on what's going on. The markets are still, happy joy, all-time high. Gold, silver still, it seems to be tamped down. What's on your radar, Greg Manarino?
Well, I mean, let's look at today. I mean, today was really interesting. We had bad economic news across the board. We got unemployment came in worse than expected. We got GDP revised down. Interest rates are rising. Existing home sales were down. And what happened? The market rose almost 100 points on that news. It did close lower. It closed up, I think, about 22 points. But, I mean, this normally would have caused a sell-off. But why didn't it? Well, because the market understands that there is no way that Ben Bernanke is going to stop printing cash out of thin air, devalue the currency, rob our purchasing power, continue to purchase mortgage-backed securities,
Right.
continue to purchase bonds. This whole thing about them cutting back on QE is nonsense. I've gone on the record many times saying not only are they not going to stop, this is going to increase it over time. Metals are, in my opinion, at a floor now. I've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. I think I pretty much called this one very well. And the bottom line is this: the Fed is running the show. It's completely, the markets are completely disconnected from reality. The economy here is not improving. If it were not for the Fed, could you imagine where we would be? The Fed cannot stop. We are on a trajectory towards absolute financial ruin, not just here in the United States, but on a global level.
Well, you're talking about the markets and how they rally on this news, and it goes to prove the point that the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, the S&P, all these indicators are now officially, right? They're counter indicators to the health of the economy. And you're
absolutely. I love the way you said that. They're absolute 100%. They're counter. The higher the markets go, the worse you know the economy is. Yeah. Black is white and white is black.
Up is down. It's through the looking glass. It's Orwellian in nature. And you're right. They know, right? Look, if it comes out tomorrow that 450,000 jobs were lost in May, you better hold on for your rally, because they get it. They understand. Bernanke ain't going to let this go apart. What does that mean? It instantly means more and longer quantitative easing, more false interest rates, more printing money out of thin air in order to rescue the Wall Street bankers. We're going to be back with Greg Manarino in our final segment in just a few minutes. Please hang tight. Guys, welcome back to the final segment of Wide Awake News Radio on this 30th day of May, Thursday. Greg Manarino is our guest, and we were continuing the conversation about the necessity to have a life outside of our work. And we both enjoy shooting. We both enjoy, the guns, and we own them. And you're right, Greg. We do need to enjoy this. I delivered this message last night. We need to be able to enjoy what we have and enjoy the people that we call family and friends, because without that, what point, right?
Yeah, I think we all get too tied up in things that maybe aren't as important as we think they are. You know what I mean? I am so guilty of this. And, I always have my hands in too many things. Like you call me Renaissance man. I am always involved in something, multiple things. And because of that, I mean, I don't know what it is. It's the way my brain is wired, I guess, and it's a curse, But I have to start, kicking back a little bit and try to enjoy my friends and family and live a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, as you said, we were talking about civility, and this starts with law enforcement and where we see this lack of civility towards people. But it isn't just law enforcement. It isn't just these revenue guys. It's just in general, people are becoming more and more hostile towards one another. Man, and I see this every day. It doesn't matter if it's a gas station or at the store. You just see the hostility of one another, toward one another, continue to grow. Am I seeing things here, or do you feel that too? Vegas is going to have a lot of tension regardless. But I'm telling you, man, I see people becoming less civil, less social, and more, tense, more angry, more stressed.
Exactly. And why is that? I think because people are now forced to work so hard to maintain a standard of living that was easy, let's say 15 or 20 years ago. That's the whole thing. We're told about how our children are going to live a better life than we are. This is absolutely false. We've seen the lifestyle of the average American decline, decade after decade. And that's really the sad part of this whole thing is our children are not going to even enjoy what we have now. And think how hard we are all working, why we're all so stressed out, why you can't, say hello to someone that you walk by in the street without them thinking you have an ulterior motive. It's very sad. It really is.
Well, I think a lot of it is, and as a practitioner, maybe you see that, and I know that eventually you're working out of that, but you're never going to not be double negative, never going to not be a practitioner. But and I should interview these folks who are seeing people with this high anxiety level, because in the world that I live in, as far as my day job and talking to people who are professional resource individuals, or their professional purchasers, that kind of thing, for some very, very big corporations. I feel the stress in their voice, because the disconnect financially, the disconnect between the recovery and what's reality. It's obvious and it's there, and I feel tension rising. People are always the drive to get the lowest, cheapest, fastest is like I've never seen before, because profit margins are so ridiculously thin. And believe it or not, even though we're fed that we're returning economically, the proof on the ground is something different. The supply is there and the demand is not. So I see tension levels rising in the business world. I'm sure that the medical professionals see it as well.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. You know what I think it comes down to as well? We've lost a very important part of what made America great, and that is the small business, the mom and pop store. Everyone now works for a corporation, and that corporate attitude just leads down to everyone, where you feel like you're not appreciated, you're worthless, you'll lose your job at the drop of a hat. God forbid you get sick and try to call out. God forbid your kid is sick, you have to stay home. This is very sad. I mean, I've gone on the record saying this. This is not the United States of America. This is the United States of corporate America now. And we do have a system that is very twisted. We have a corporate state controlled by the government. Definition, fascism. And that plays into everything else that we see going on around us. And as you know, and most of your listeners know, this is not going to improve. This is going to get much harsher and much worse.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a little bit the corporate, everybody working for corporate America, and that attitude and that mentality. I'm telling you, man, I deal with this daily, and I mean that's one of the things that I do for a living, is deal with corporate accounts, and it has become so pervasive. That the drive is not about an economy that's growing in a positive way. The drive is, how can you get yours? How can you get over on X, Y, Z? How can you get over on your supplier? How can you get over on your end user? It's all about getting, and it is not healthy. It's just not healthy.
I think if people who are listening to this are lucky enough to have a mom and pop store, no matter what it is around their neighborhood, do business with these people. Avoid these corporate entities that are only out to suck you dry across the board. That's really the truth. I think we need to get back to the grassroots. We need to go back to a time where, being an American meant something. Today, it's just a different world. I mean, in so many ways than just a few years ago. The trajectory that we're on is not good, as you know.
Absolutely, man. And not good, and tensions continue to rise. The disconnect between propagandized reality and true reality is growing wider and wider every day. The disconnect between the haves and the have-nots is growing, or I should say, the chasm that's between those that have wealth and those that are literally calling me, emailing me, freaking out, crying because their credit score is in the toilet, and they don't know how they're going to make their next payment on this, that, or the other thing. That tension, that stress that unfortunately more and more people are feeling is going to continue to get worse, and attitudes and civility is going to continue to decline. No doubt about it, Greg Manarino. I agree 100%.
Yeah, taxes will be going up. The currency will be devalued further. Our way of life is going to continue to deteriorate. Tensions are going to continue to rise. and people are going to revolt at one point.
And the hope is they just don't destroy one another. You know, it is the old bait and switch, smoke and mirrors, blame thy neighbor tactic that we see right now.
Exactly. I think people need to band together and realize this. You know, I've gone on the record saying this too. I'm not a religious person. That's the truth. But I do believe this. We are responsible for each other. Every single one of us is responsible for each other. And, you know, together we can make a difference. We just have, they don't want us. They want to divide and conquer. That's what they're trying to do. Divide and conquer. If we, you know, go against that and try to realize that we have to band together and realize we're all in the same boat here, maybe we can make a difference. I don't know. I think it's too late at this point.
I do too. I agree with that. That we're heading for, you know, the catastrophe that's coming. I guess the severity is, and what regions are impacted worse than others is truly, in my opinion, the only question. I don't know if you know, this Rocky Mountain West is going to fare better than the Pacific Northwest or where you're at in the South. You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's regional. I don't know if the breakdown is national, global. But I do know that something shocking, I believe, is on the way. What are we doing? We got about 2 minutes left here. Give me a little bit about the sites and what you're doing to try to prepare yourself, get yourself in a position. And this is, I've been saying this to a lot of people lately. You know, I don't know how long QE lasts. I know it lasts until it doesn't work anymore. It's not going to stop until it doesn't work anymore. And when it does, it's going to be a change of life that most people don't realize is coming. What are you doing? What are you doing to try to put yourself in a better position now so you can face the very much certain, uncertain future?
I think people need to realize that we are now in the midst, right in the heart of the death of the debt-based economic model based around a fiat monetary system, period. What does that mean for everyone? That means you got to get out of their game. You got to number one, become your own central bank, meaning you know, acquire hard assets. I'm a big advocate of owning gold and silver. I'm a big advocate of owning things as well. Not just that. People need to understand that, sadly, the game that is played on people forces them to lease, borrow, and rent into oblivion. Get out of that game. Get out of that mindset. What's the difference?
You know what? We were going to talk about your book tonight, your booklet too, and that's one thing I wanted to bring. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue on. Get out of that game.
Get out of that whole mindset, you know, and understand where things are going now. The world is on a very dangerous trajectory with central banks and a currency war, which is unfortunately going to lead, in my opinion, to civil unrest, social discontent, to the point of that people are not going to believe, probably regional wars, maybe global war. But the main thing people need to take away from this is just be prepared for the worst. Always be prepared for the worst, because being unprepared for something will leave you the most vulnerable. Again. And I think that's really what people need to start thinking about.
So gold, silver. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Gold, silver. But you're still doing business, trading these markets. If people want to follow what you're doing for absolutely free, how can they do it?
Oh, well, you know, yeah, I'm a big time trader. That's what I do. But you know, for someone, I've been involved in this for a long time. But I think, you know, for someone that wants to get involved here in the markets, I do have a free website. It's called traderschoice.net. No signups and no passwords.
Greg Manarino, always a pleasure. It was nice to spend the last hour of the 2-hour programming talking with you about just about everything but finance, and that's always why I like having you on, because we go down different paths, and it's always very interesting. Greg Manarino, thank you very much for joining us. We'll get you on with the new format, and I wish you the best, my friend.
You too,